Part 1. Digest of Deadly Animals. Deadly Animals is a crime novel set in 1981 in Rubery, a village south of Birmingham, England. The novel follows the intertwined stories of Ava Bonney, a curious and observant 13-year-old girl with a fascination for death and decomposition, and Detective Sergeant Seth Delahaye, a seasoned police officer investigating a series of child murders. The story begins with Ava's discovery of the body of Mickey Grant, a 14-year-old boy who had been missing for 2 weeks. Ava, who has a secret body farm where she observes the decomposition of dead animals, is drawn to the scene and becomes an unofficial participant in the investigation. The narrative alternates between Ava's perspective and that of D.S. Delahaye, providing insights into both the personal and professional aspects of the investigation. Ava, living in a difficult family situation, finds solace in her macabre hobby, while Delahaye grapples with the complexities of the case and the emotional toll it takes. The discovery of a second victim, 8-year-old Brian Shelton, heightens the tension and urgency of the investigation. The police, initially focused on adult suspects, are baffled by the brutality of the murders and the lack of clear motives. Ava, with her keen observation skills and knowledge of the local area, provides crucial information to the police, leading them to a derelict farmhouse where Mickey was likely murdered. Despite her young age and unusual interests, Ava proves to be a valuable asset to the investigation, often noticing details that the police overlook. The murders continue, and the police, desperate for answers, receive a cryptic phone call from a mysterious Miss Misty, who suggests that the killer might suffer from clinical lycanthropy, a rare mental condition in which individuals believe they are werewolves. This theory, initially met with skepticism, gradually gains traction as the investigation progresses. The novel explores the themes of childhood trauma, isolation, and the dark side of human nature. Ava, marked by her dysfunctional family life, seeks understanding and control in her morbid fascination with death, while the killer, driven by a warped sense of reality, acts out his violent fantasies. The climax of the novel takes place during a blizzard as Ava, John, Ava's friend, and Paul, an adult who is fond of Ava, confront the killer, who is revealed to be Nathaniel Marlowe, a troubled teenager with a history of animal cruelty. The confrontation is both terrifying and cathartic, as Ava and her friends face their fears and fight for their survival. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the truth about Nathaniel's past and the motivations behind his crimes are gradually revealed, shedding light on the complex web of events that led to the tragedy. The novel ends with a sense of closure, but also with a lingering awareness of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives.
I was interested in all the things that she was interested in at the same age. So I decided I was going to write what I know. And I went for it. I wrote the first 1,000 words, promptly entered a competition I forgot about. And I was contacted by one of the judges in the national first novel competition in a national newspaper. And they said, "Where's the rest of the book? We love this." So I said, "Pardon?" And I spent the next 2 years researching and writing the rest of the book. But Ava is based on me at the same age. All her interests, all her fears, family, all of that is based on my experiences. I had a roadkill body farm between the ages of 7 and 10 years old. And it all comes from my interest in biology in general, zoology specifically, life and death. So it would be equal to watch kittens being born in a rubbish tip outside the block of flats, as much as roadkill disintegrating by degrees and making a record of it. I would make as much progress about the kittens' development as they thrived, as much as the roadkill body farm, because it's all part of the same cycle. very focused on the life and death cycles of mammals, very specifically, and skeleton structure. I think that with Seth, because I didn't want to create a very stereotypical detective who was drunk or had drug issues or was a womanizer or had all different types of issues. I didn't want him to be, the depressed detective. I wanted somebody who was obviously raised with love, who was well balanced, who had got all that childishness out of his system, and was a well-rounded human being. So that this child, who essentially doesn't have any of that kind of role model in her life, has at least one of them. And I wanted him to be the antithesis to all the adults that were around her. So I created Seth. And he's based on two men I knew, who were like that, who were supportive, who were grown-ups, who knew the difference between right and wrong, who actually liked women. So Seth was developed from that. And his name, the Delahaye, is named after a French classic car. I used to follow all kinds of real life police programs growing up. I have books from the 80s that are solely around the police forces in this country. I did have somebody who I could contact for certain details, who's a former chief detective. If I had any queries, I would email him and he would say, yes, this would be this way, or this would be this way, or we behave this way. So yes, I did have somebody who would keep me on the straight and narrow if I had any questions or doubts at all about what would happen in police procedure during the 1980s. Yes, I wanted it to predate DNA. So I wanted it to be old-fashioned, hard work, and nothing easy for Ava and for Seth as well, and police force, his team around him. I wanted it to make sure that it was grinding, it was tough, you didn't have, I mean, even in 1980, even in 1985, which is where the second book is set, it's still very much 100-year-old science they're still working with, which is blood grouping, secretor work, and fingerprints, and that's about it, really. The fact that the villain of the piece wouldn't have been on a DNA database anyway, for a whole host of reasons. But it would have made things a lot easier. And I wanted to set it in a time and in a place that had so much going on for it. The car factories, the huge schools, the mental hospitals, the children's home, the massive children's home, that sort of whole community, which isn't there anymore because the car factory closed down, the mental hospitals shut down, and there hasn't been that sort of busyness since, the 1990s. So I wanted to set it in a place which still had sort of a village sort of atmosphere to it, because the case in the book is based on 3 cases in history, which was also centered around a village, or villages. So I thought I would set it there at that time with those people. I didn't want to write it from his point of view. I think there are too many true crime TV series where we get to see it from the killer's point of view. I wanted to see it from a community's point of view, the victim's point of view, how child murder very specifically fractures whole communities. So I thought that I would create a villain who was very complicated and was like no other villain that I could think of, except the historical cases. The villain's very complicated. He has more than mother issues. He's got loads of things going on which have influenced him to a point where he behaves in a way that he knows is wrong, but does what he does anyway, which is what a lot of bad people do. But I wanted somebody that you could almost sympathize with to a level.
So the books on Sit Stay Read feature animal characters, and your book caught my attention because it features animals, but in a little different way. So I would love for you to tell us more about Deadly Animals.
So it's a crime fiction thriller. It's set in 1981 in South Birmingham in the West Midlands of England. And it's about a teenage girl who has the macabre habit of studying roadkill, and all nature and wildlife in general, but that is her speciality. And while she's studying one particular fixture, a fox, she comes across the dead body of a missing teenage boy. And that's how it begins. So it has many, many animals in it. She's very interested in animal anatomy, specifically bones, human anatomy as well. She likes to compare. And it's got dogs in it. Don't want to give too many spoilers away.
Yep.
And it's well, it covers the whole plethora of nature, really, dead and alive. So yeah, but it's very fixed on the canine aspect, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. And I read that you grew up reading fairy tales and that some specific fairy tales inspired this. So, along with the animals, which fairy tales came into play with this,
Okay,
with
so
Deadly
uh,
Animals?
well, for the book, for the actual crime fiction plot, it was based on three real life cases that were in France, and
Oh, okay.
Russia during the what was it? Let me have a think. It's the 15th, 16th centuries, 17th centuries, and and it involved um, child killings. If we can imagine that it is Little Red Riding Hood
Okay.
meets Max from Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh,
If
I
he was,
love that. Did you base her character on anyone in particular, your life or someone you know?
yes, me, completely the
Okay.
same. Of
Okay.
all the with all the ticks and the interests and the macabre hobbies and that kind of thing. So yeah, I thought if I was going to write that sort of character with any authenticity, then I would have to delve within my own past and create this person who has better support system than I did at the time. And I'm really, really, really pleased that people have seem to have taken Ava Bonney to their hearts. So I'm really pleased
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
13 quite happy with that. I didn't want to have a detective that has all the usual stereotypical crime fiction habits of womanizing, being a drunk, being a drug addict, having issues. I just wanted somebody in the book that's moral compass was solid, who knew the difference between right and wrong, who had been raised in love and loved his job, and also completely baffled by this awful murder case that's landed in his lap. So his reactions are very much like men I have known in the past, and who were like that, who were just good men. And so I chose that name because it's unusual. It stands apart from all the other English names that are in the book, because I wanted him to stand out as a beacon of goodness.
Well, back to the storyline with 1981. I was really fascinated. Why that year? And then your next book's set in 85. So what
Yes.
made you go back in time versus making it contemporary right
I
now?
wanted I wanted to put the detectives, and that includes Ava, through their paces because prior to 1987, there was no DNA.
Yeah.
So they have to use old-fashioned public support, proper evidence, proper deduction techniques, common sense. And I wanted them to use those qualities, those techniques, rather than, oh, we've got him because he's got DNA. In
Yeah.
1981, we were still working with 100-year-old forensic evidence techniques, for example, fingerprinting, um, blood typing, secreting, that kind of aspect of it. And I wanted it to make it an old-fashioned crime fiction story, which was historically based in an area I knew very, very well, with all its strange dichotomies. But I want everybody to be on a journey of change. And
Yeah.
one of the characters in it is certainly trying to change.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so I wanted to make the villains, I wanted to make the heroes, I wanted them to make them as complicated as possible.
Yeah.
So
And you
you
did
don't
that.
you understand them, but you don't make excuses for them,
Yes.
because that's one of the reasons why I never wrote from the villain's point of view, because there's too much about from the villain's point of view, and I'm not really into that. So I wanted to know
Okay.
what the victims and the victims' impact on the community was like, on their families, and on Ava, because she knows two of the victims really well.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so I wanted, yeah, to make everybody well-rounded, even the background characters. Because with Deadly Animals, I was starting to panic that I would never finish it. So I wrote the ending, and then I worked back from the ending
Oh,
to where I was,
interesting.
what I was, and it worked. So yes.
Okay.
So this time I had the ending, I had the plot that I wanted, and then it all merged together. And apparently, it's all the readers love it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it's
and they didn't know who
fantastic.
they didn't know who the villain was until the very end. So there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed writing both of them. Um, and I'm very, very pleased that Americans like it.
Oh, I
That's
love
just
it.
fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
really, really pleased about that.